Hi, this is Mrs. Talia. Welcome to my virtual learning classroom, and I will be guiding you through the insights of my learning packet.
Welcome to your Google Classroom. Let us begin with your learning packet here.
On the top, you have your learning objective. At the end of the lesson, you should be able to find the domain of a rational function. To the left side, here are the learner's guide. This will serve as your map. You are expected to watch the video discussion, complete the warm-up exercises, join the practice game, submit your takeout via Padlets, fill in your exit ticket, click the YouTube link beside.
Alright, in this video I want to talk about satisfying the domain of a function, or equivalently, we're going to find the domain.
This can be enlarged using the full screen keys.
Typically, anytime I see a domain question, there's two big things I think I have to avoid. There's two big restrictions. If there's any fractions floating around, we have to omit any values of x that give us 0 in the denominator, so we'll have to solve that equation. And if there's any square roots, or really any even-powered root, we don't want any negative numbers to appear underneath that radical after we kind of simplify and do all the arithmetic. So, two questions. Let's find the domain of these two. 1 over x squared minus 7x minus 30, and then b, we've got the square root of 2x plus 3. So to me, kind of the idea, the values that are bad, or the values that I must omit for this first equation, I don't want any value of x that makes the denominator 0. So I'm basically thinking, if I set, what makes the denominator, x squared minus 7x minus 30, I'm thinking, what makes that equal 0? Well, we just hopefully factor this. So let's see, I need an x and an x to get my x squared. I need two numbers that multiply to negative 30, so I know I'm going to need a negative and a positive. Those two numbers, when I multiply, I have to get negative 30, but I have to add up to negative 7. So I think if we use negative 10 and positive 3, those two numbers will fit the bill. And again, I want this to equal 0, so if we set x minus 10 equals 0, we'll get x equals 10, and we'll get x equals negative 3 as solutions. So our domain is going to be all values of x. All values of x except for x equals 10 and x equals negative 3. We could write that in interval notation by simply saying it's from negative infinity up to negative 3. Then we have to skip over negative 3 and go up to 10. And then we have to skip over 10 and go all the way to positive infinity. So sort of two different equivalent ways. The other one here, we have the square root of 2x plus 3. So again, to me the values that are good, in this case, is the way I think about it. It's good if what's ever underneath the square root is greater than or equal to 0. That's what we need to happen. We only want numbers that are greater than or equal to 0, whatever's under the square root. Well, 2x plus 3, that's what's underneath the square root. So this now produces an inequality I have to solve. And fortunately, this is just a linear inequality, so it's not too bad. I can subtract 3 from both sides and get 2x greater than or equal to negative 3, divide by 2, and it says x needs to be greater than or equal to negative 3 halves. So again, this is my domain in this case. And in interval notation, we can write that as brackets, negative 3 halves up to infinity. And that would be the domain for our radical or our square root function.
Once you're done, just hit the escape button and you will be back to your original slide. Welcome to Edpuzzle. You will be prompted to log in your Gmail account, Google Classroom account, to proceed to the activity. This is auto-sync in your account, so don't miss it. By hitting this, they will be redirected again to Edpuzzle using their desktop. Now, using their mobile devices, they will be able to redirect to their applications. Inside the Edpuzzle, this is the teacher's content in video form. Okay, give the domain of the following rational functions. The f of x is equal to 1 over x. What would be the possible value of x? And what is not a good value for x? So allow me to write that. What is the possible value for x? Now, we can change possible to, we can write that as an allowable value for x. If x would be equal to 0, then we will get a 1 over x value, which, let us write it here so we can show 1 over 0. Then we will get, the students then will be prompted to answer a multiple questions. What is the value of 1 over 0? Undefined, 0, or 1. They can skip it, rewatch it, or simply answer. They are reminded that these are graded, so they have to submit an answer at least. And it will be then recognized because since this is multiple choice, there is a predictive correct answer for this. Then that's the only time they can hit continue to play the video. An undefined. Once you're done, you will be prompted that your mission is already complete. And it will then be recorded to the gradebook of the teacher. Moving back to the slide, they can proceed to the next activity, which is practice using Quizzes. Join the game by clicking the icon Quizzes. Will the teacher ever know that the students participated in the activity? Again, this is an asynchronous learning. It is a student pace. They can always go back to the activity. They can pause the activity. They can resume to the activity whenever they are prepared. Now, they can play the quiz and this will not be recorded to the teacher's gradebook. But this will serve as an activity to the student. Once you're done, go back to your slides and proceed to the next. This area serves as your enrichment lesson. So the students will be able to read more by clicking the icon, and they will be redirected to my drive, my personal drive, Google Drive, to download, print, or have their own copy of the lesson. Now, this is a springboard for the next topic. These are all downloadables and can be shared through cloud sharing. And last slide, this will be their assignment page or their takeout page. Now, the students are allowed to write their solutions or make a picture solution of their lesson. In here, we have what are the allowable values for x in the given function. And this icon of Padlet are clickable. Click the icon to upload your written or image format solution. Then, I ask them to reflect on what are the domains of your life and are there any restrictions you are experiencing at the moment. Show them via Padlet. Please attach your name. And also we have here the exit ticket that serves as the feedback tickets. And if they wish to speak with the teacher further, then they can have this click bubble, which has a link for the email, personal email of the teacher. So they can have an appointment or an instant messaging through this speech bubble. After filling in, congratulations, you're done with lesson 1. If you click the speech bubble to ask the teacher, do check your email to see the teacher's reply. Here are the results of my students' take. Now, we will start with this one. This was the first answer. So, the student did not write his answer. He can redo that. You can expect that some students will have this playful answer, and we cannot overrule that fact that some kids are really playful. The allowable values of x in the function is in the set where x is an element of R and x is not equal to. After taking this class, I realized that it is comparable to real life situations, whereas a function can define our lives while the x defines our limits. Since we are in a pandemic, COVID-19 is a restriction for us since it lessens our ways to communicate and to have proper way to educate. So this is so profound. So I said you have an insightful thoughts. From Gav, another student. Okay, and then she was able to show her solution and final answer of the domain. You see, you can encourage the students to reflect on their work. Now, this is a formative way of telling them that your lessons are relevant to their daily lives. Those are the possibilities of this activity, and mathematics is the language of the universal God. Now, this is the learning ticket. Once they click that, they will be redirected to my Google form, which is also linked to my Google Drive. They will be prompted to write their email before you leave the class today, because this could serve as their attendance on their activity. Okay, write their name. These are my questions. What's one important thing you learned in class today? Again, this is reflective. Did you feel prepared for today's lesson? Why or why not? What would help make today's lesson more effective? And then they can submit and send a copy for themselves. So I have 2 UM students, 2 STEM students who participated, and 1 from junior high school. Okay, so they are Zairi, Emmanuel, Fyra, Ivan, and Gabriel. For the first question, they said, what's one important you learned in class today? So they said that finding the domain of the rational function, domain's limit of the function, life is about adapting, inserting a game through a lesson excites me, satisfying domains of a rational function. This is a real-time feedback from the students who took part the activity. Did you feel prepared for today's lesson? Why or why not? Yes, this was discussed in grade 10. I feel that I am well prepared. Yes, I've known the lesson. Yes. Yes, because we are informed ahead of time. So they were oriented already. Um, this is good to know because this will serve as your springboard, your cue to prepare for the next lesson, that there is no need for you to come back, so you can just proceed and move on to the next lesson. Or you can also deepen your lesson by giving them a more in-depth or more challenging questions with regards to the lesson. What would help make today's lesson more effective? So they suggested that more examples and 2 to 3 complicated problems. So you can see the thirst from the students. These are coming from the STEM people. STEM people. Communication between the learner and the teacher. So for them, they need to be they need a follow up. So there is a suggestion of blended type of asynchronous and synchronous method by having fun and making the lessons less boring. So there's a need for you to give them more activities or make it more exciting for the millennial learners. Perhaps the quiz could be 5 items longer. So they are suggesting that you need to make it more, not to give more examples, more quizzes, and these are achievers. So you would really expect that from them. But for those who are low keyed, you will take it gradually. So those are the suggestions that you would want to hear from your students, don't we? Okay, for the final touch, of course, just to show you the speech bubble, this is actually a collaborative work from the DepEd Central, headed by Mr. Mark C., which we were asked to make our Wix site. This was actually my first Wix site. So the contact information will be here. They can just write their name and make their queries here. And also, they can actually write their queries direct from their Google Classroom. They can easily speak to the teacher, converse them, see the comment section below. They can easily ask the teachers how to check the work of your students using Edpuzzle. Remember that the students are already done with their work and you're only checking their activities. Now, since these are collaborated with Edpuzzle and Google Classroom, your grade book on the upper part, this is my activity RF example, rational function. We have the grade book over on the top. I'll just have to select that. This is my dashboard using Edpuzzle. I can see that the students were able to get this because I already pre-checked them. But Zoe and Fyra wasn't checked yet. So let us take a look at that activity because it says to be graded. So the scores are not yet reflected because it's not yet done checking Zoe and Fyra. So let's take with Fyra. If I hit that, I can be able to see the answers of Fyra. So that one is already correct because it's a preloaded answer key. Now, if equate the value of the denominator, if the answer here is correct, then I will just have to hit that check. If not, I can just hit X. So she will not get a perfect score. Write in set notation, I can just hit it check. And also I can comment. No, probably she used the desktop. That's why she has the inequality symbol, the not equal symbol. You can just write good job. and comment that. And then it will be sent to her. And then this one is also correct. And finally, this is correct. Now, once you're done checking, you can just go back to your grade book and see for yourself that it's already there. That FIRA, or it is an on a real-time assessment. So the checking is done online by the teacher. Now, these grade books can be exported and downloaded via Excel file. So see? So for now, I will not save this, but it will be downloaded to my file and I can just export that to my e-class record. And recording would be a breeze for me. So I'm back. So let us have now the students' feedback form that I gathered after the simulation. I get to ask my students after the simulations and here are their answers. For Evan, sabi niya, "Mami-meet niyo po ba ang class ninyo?" He was very curious. And I said, "Yes, I have to." That is after checking the list, mastered skills from the learning packet. So I have seen the learning packets that there's no problem with the lesson. So I can proceed to the next activity, which is the deepening of the lesson. And no need for me to go back or to review prerequisite lessons such as factoring, equating to zeros, something like that. The next one is, another feedback is, "Natuwa ako doon sa quiz is chuchu." Sabi niya. Sabi ko, "Hindi ka natuwa sa voice over ko?" Sabi niya, natuwa siya. He said, "Natuwa po ako kasi short lang." So it's really advisable to have a very short clip. Now, by the way, that clip was made by me as well. And it is a content that I uploaded through Edpuzzle. And then, Gabriel said that, "Ma'am, i-propose mo nga yung method mo sa LM Campus. Hindi siya data consuming. Umabot pa raw siya before mag-expire yung kanyang load." Tapos, ang sabi naman ni Ivan, yung data po na mako-consume is yung paglo-load lang ng video itself. Pero mas tipid pa rin po kaysa sa synchronous classes. For your background, Ivan is already in college and he's experiencing both synchronous and asynchronous. But he is also a graduate of Lago High School. He graduated as a class valedictorian during his time. And the next one, I asked them, which part did you find the most difficult? Because it is not a perfect learning packets. There are some difficulty that we have encountered along the way. And I asked my students, so I gave them choices because they had a hard time answering. A, switching apps. B, loading the activity. C, user interface. D, all of the above. And I said, OMG, wag naman sana ito lahat. And he said, A and C, ma'am, mabilis naman po mag-load sa akin. Kaya no problem. But he said, first time user po, that's his disclaimer. First time user po except sa Google Classroom. Pero noong pangalawang beses, okay naman na po. So he tried it again and he found out that it was as easier as before. The first time he tried the application. Next, I asked them to answer, as a STEM or UM student, my ideal online learning, there was a typo, learning would be blank. I can learn best with my own pacing, teacher guided, with edu apps or education application form. And here's what Bausa said. As a STEM student, my ideal online learning would be async learning with little interaction, somewhat similar inside a class pero medyo idealistic. I can learn best with my own pacing and teacher guided. It was quite contradicting because he said he wants asynchronous learning but at the same time he can learn his own style. He can use his own style. He learns best with his own pacing, but it has to be teacher guided. So what he was trying to tell us is that he wants a blended type of online learning, which is synchronous and asynchronous. So far, that's what I get with what he's trying to say. And for Gabriel, she said, as a UM student, my ideal online learning would be a blend of sync and asynchronous learning. I can learn best with my own pacing, but learning will be more effective if there will be a teacher who would guide me. For Fyra, as a UM student, my ideal online learning would be having some interaction between the student and teachers during discussion to avoid misconceptions about the topic. I can learn best with my own pacing together with teachers' guidance. Again, so those are the words of the students I have met. And finally, a last word from Evan. I think the question was, overall, would you think, considering a limited data connection and limited learning management system, do you think that this would bridge the gap of learning difficulty? And he said that I think it couldn't entirely fill the gap brought by the pandemic. However, small steps taken would be better than completely refusing to take actions at all regarding data connection and bandwidth concerns. I think it would be best to follow the asynchronous setup of learning teaching, as the students will opt to learn the lessons when they are willing and able to do so. This is on top of the consideration given that not everyone has access to a fast and stable internet connections. And there you have it, my dear colleagues, teachers, and mentors. That so far is what I gathered from my students, and I hope this would bring a new venue for you to consider an asynchronous learning modalities. Thank you and have a nice day.